do anything because I knew by the time I got home, my father would know it, and he wasn't going to ask any questions. He was just going to support the adults who had taken the initial
That's
action.
right. That's right. Yeah.
And that was it.
If they said it, that was it. Right.
That was it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so basically, I think that we grew up with the community being able to correct us, with the community telling us that education is the way out.
Right.
We grew up with, when I grew up, the only thing that African Americans, educated African Americans, could do was to either be a teacher, a doctor, or a lawyer because industry had not opened up.
Right.
So we had some of the best teachers there were.
There you go. That's right.
In our schools in Alabama, we had teachers who were certified in home economics, teaching home economic classes. And in the white schools, they had housewives teaching home economics classes because there were so many more opportunities for white people to do other things. They didn't have to do it.
Right.
So all of my teachers, I would say, I won't say all of them, I would say a significant number of them had in high school had PhDs in the subjects that they taught. And the other thing is Dr. Norman, Mrs. Terrell, Dr. Hatter, they live within a block of me. And so we all lived in the same community.
That's a significant thing.
Yeah,
Significant point.
And so we had people living within our community who could give advice, counsel, show the way, organize, and help everybody, help lift the whole community. Unlike what we have now in many situations, we've moved away from our community and we're helping other communities develop while our communities are going into ruins. You know.
And back then, you could see your teachers and get help from them if you needed after school hours.
Right.
They were the example right there with you. I went to North Carolina at an early age. I went to high school a couple of years, and my math teacher lived right across the street from me.
Right.
And it was always good to go over there and get some help on, if I needed it after school, and that's real significant as well. I want to save the second half of this program or more to talk to you about your career and Procter & Gamble, but this is so interesting. Christopher, what about you and your insight as Herb's son? I mean, give us some indication of how it was for you to grow up and to share in his legacy that he is leaving now, even now.
Well, my father is a very hard worker, very committed to his family, a very strict disciplinarian. I mean, Dad didn't take any mess, so you had to fulfill your contract. When I say contract, he didn't have a contract, but these are the expectations. I never had a curfew, which was interesting. I tell people, I just knew what it was. Dad didn't say you had to be in the house at this time. You know what I'm saying? I left wherever I was and came home. There weren't any cell phones. You just had to be home. So, it was great. My father, because he is an inventor, which we'll get into, sometimes he would use us as his test cases. So as he was developing something, he would, like one time we all lined up and he put a drop on all of our tongue and asked us what we tasted.
What'd you taste it?
Yeah, I said, my dad, man, he's about to kill everybody. But from a child's perspective, of course, I stuck my tongue out and took my drop.
That's right.
I think he was developing the different flavors with Crush when he was doing the testing.
Well, he came out with a good one because I remember drinking Orange Crush, and that was real good. That was like the best orange pop we used to have. Yeah, but, that was good.
My father has his PhD in physical organic chemistry, and it's a very tough, very tough discipline. And one of the things I discovered, and then because I want to hear about my dad's story, is that I'm good in math, and I think there are so many of our young people who are good in math that have never been discovered.
Yeah.
That they're good in math. We
Good
have
point.
all of these
Excellent
diamonds
point.
around,
Yes.
but they're underdeveloped.
Right.
Where, my father, my mother always emphasized that, we are good in math, we're
Right.
good in English, good in reading. So it was a very nice home. And the last point is that my dad, from my perspective, was about creating a childhood. And I appreciated that. So he allowed me to have a childhood.
Yeah.
He didn't make me, I'm not a man
Right.
when I come out
That's
at 2.
important. That's important.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I was able to have a nice childhood and was very, very fortunate to have my parents and have them as my parents. I always tease them because there's 6 of us.
Yeah.
That I was glad that he continued to number 5. I'm
Yeah.
number 5. 'Cause
You're 5.
Any point he could have cut off. and if my brother Joe was a girl, I don't know if I'd be here. Bro.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he was a boy. I was number 5, and then May came at number 6. So.
Yeah, that's one thing we did say. There are 6 children, six
Six
children. But he needed his own focus group.
That's right.
As a chemist for P&G, he needed his own focus group. That's right.
And my dad is an only child.
Wow.
He didn't mention that. He's an only child.
Okay.
So.
So let's get into anything else you might want to say about your past and about Birmingham and about how you got to live here in Cincinnati and all of that. But I want to get into your career as well. I think that's very significant because it provides a role model, really a role model segment for the viewers of the show that they can pass on to their children as well.
Well, my mother had one sister who lived in Dayton. And then I had, my mother had a first cousin who lived in Covington, Kentucky.
Okay.
And so because I was the only child, I would visit this area every summer. As a
Yeah.
matter of fact, I worked in Dayton at Sut Miller's restaurant every summer, beginning high school, up through college. So I came to live with my aunt in Dayton, my mother's sister in Dayton, and I worked there. And I would always visit with my relatives in Covington and that sort of thing. So I was kind of familiar with this area. So when Herb Nortzig, who was the Procter & Gamble recruiter, came to talk to me about working in this area, I had some familiarity with the area. My professor, the person who I did my PhD under, Dr. Lloyd N. Ferguson, is a renowned chemist in his own sake, and he got his PhD from Berkeley in California, outstanding chemist, published 2 or 3 books. He was more interested in my going to UCLA, doing a postdoc, and then going into academics. And after talking with him, he and I agreed, said, well, I'll take a pass and I'll take a year and go to Cincinnati, and I'll work at P&G for a year. And then if things don't work out, I'll go on. So I came to P&G, worked for a year, and then stayed. So, but the whole area, I was very familiar with this area because I had relatives up here. So it was easy for me to come here as a start.
Christopher mentioned the importance of math, and I always teach in my speaking engagements when I come across this subject that black children need to know that we invented math, that black people have invented math. Right. I think if they know that, they'd have a better appreciation for it. And it's real important that here you sit as a chemist. That's another area of endeavor or profession that our children are not exposed to as much as they should be. Chemistry and math. And recently we had a young student here in Cincinnati who received a full 12-year scholarship, the Millennium Scholarship, the Gates Foundation. He received it. He went to Withrow.
Okay.
And he was going to major in chemical engineering, I'm pretty sure. I wanted to have him as a guest on the show. We couldn't arrange it. But it's real important that we present these kinds of non-traditional areas of profession to our young children to let them know there's something more than the sports and the rapping and the athletes and the entertainment and those kinds of, that's okay. But hey, there's a whole world out there that they can expose themselves to and be exposed to and learn from and make a heck of a good life for them and their families as well. So I appreciate you for that. How did you choose chemistry anyway? You say you went from music to chemistry. That's like a quantum leap.
Yeah, well, growing up, I always had a great deal of curiosity and exploration, and I enjoyed exploring things, taking things apart, putting them back together, trying not to have more screws left over
Yeah, yeah.
than I started with. So, and I always enjoyed math. I enjoyed solving, math problems. And I think that as I have thought about that, I think a lot of young people really fear math for no reason. I mean, they don't really get involved with math to see how easy it really is. Because if you start with the fundamentals of math and build up, there's nothing, no part of it that you can't accomplish. But if you try to get ahead of yourself,
Yeah.
then you can run into issues that you don't understand because you haven't built up the foundation.
Right.
So I always tell kids, I said, look, start down here at the fundamentals, work your way to the more difficult problems, then look back and see how easy they were.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to take shortcuts, get
Yeah.
to the mountaintop,
Right,
and then
right.
really finding it very difficult.
Yeah.
But math is really not that difficult because it is so systematic and so
Uh-huh.
it's not as difficult as history because history is more memory.
Memory, right, yeah.
In math, you have formulas.
Yeah.
You can once you know a formula for the area of a triangle.
Yeah.
Once you
You
know
got
the
any
formula
triangle,
for,
right?
you know it.
Right,
So,
right, yeah. It reminds me of that movie, Aquila and the Bee,
Yeah.
when the Larry Fishburne was asking Keke Palmer, said, well, she was complaining, I can't spell all these big words. And he said, where do big words come from? And she looked at him, she said, little words? He said, you got it.
Right.
If you know the little words, you can spell the big words.
That's
You just
exactly right.
use that same analogy in math.
Right, exactly.
And I want to talk about your chemical background and how you got into it. You say you went to P&G. They recruited you.
Right.
You went there and you worked there for how long?
I worked there for 29 years.
For 29 years. I want you to give me some information about these first. You were, I understand, the first black employee or PhD there. Just give us that. And I want to talk about some of the things that you've done, that you did while you were at Procter & Gamble as well.
Okay, I'll give you a few examples. I was hired in 1966. I came to work July 1966 at P&G. And I reported to work. And there were a group of people who met me at the door at Miami Valley Lab, which was my first job. And I thought they were a group who were meeting to welcome me.
You?
So,
Well, they might have
but I
welcomed
quickly
you.
learned.
Right.
I quickly learned that they were a group to tell me that the NAACP was responsible for me having
Wow.
a job. So I said, would you then please move and let me go do my job?
There you go.
And there were, Howard Drew was the head of the organic department, and Herb Norsig was the head of recruiting. And they came and they got me and they sat me down. They said, Herb, look, you're going to have problems. We understand that. He said, but what we can do is guarantee you that we'll give you mechanisms and systems and support you in fixing those problems. So you just let us know and keep us involved and we'll go along with that. And so with their reassurance, I was reassured, and so I started to work. And within a few months after I started to work, there was an explosion at the Kansas City plant. And somehow I got the job of solving that problem.
Wow.
I had an excellent technician, Lee Dunham. Lee and I had to try and reproduce the conditions under which the explosion occurred. We were able to do that and figure out why it occurred and get the plant back online in pretty short order.
Man.
We moved on. I worked at Miami Valley for until 1976. I was promoted to section head in 1976, and that meant that I supervised the work of 3 or 4 other PhD